What if I told you that the modern obsession with, you know, the perfect morning routine, the journaling, the ice baths, the hyper-disciplined scheduling, might actually be setting you up to fail before you even leave your house?
I mean, it fundamentally challenges this illusion we all carry, right?
Yeah,
You think you're the master architect of your day when you're just standing there in the quiet of your kitchen.
exactly. But we live in an era where we're constantly told that if you just, engineer your morning perfectly, you can control your entire day.
But there is this massive gap between the person you are in a controlled environment and the incredibly vulnerable person you are the moment you step out your front door.
Right, like when someone spills coffee on you, or your train is delayed, or a massive crisis hits at work.
Exactly.
So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are stepping away from the billionaire productivity hacks and diving into a centuries old, highly spiritual framework for how to actually survive a day as, well, a fragile human being.
It's a fascinating shift in perspective.
It really is. We're looking at a really compelling essay by Neymotin from Uncompressed Thinking. It's titled Two Yehi Ratzon Prayers. And the mission for this deep dive is to basically solve a textual mystery hiding in plain sight within these ancient sources. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Well, and Neymotin's essay takes us into the traditional Jewish prayer book,
Mhm.
specifically looking at two morning prayers that are placed back to back.
Right.
And if you skim them, they almost look like a printing error.
Hmm.
They appear to be asking for the exact same protections, using very similar language, just one right after the other.
Honestly, my first thought was that some ancient editor just accidentally copied and pasted the same paragraph twice.
It definitely reads that way at first glance.
Because both of these prayers ask for protection from what the author called a recurring trio of dangers. They both specifically request to be spared from the evil inclination, a bad person, and a bad companion.
Right, the exact same three things.
And I have to push back on the source a bit here, because if I say I want to avoid a bad person, and then in the very next breath I say I want to avoid a bad companion, I mean, aren't I just repeating myself for dramatic effect? A companion is literally just a person.
Yeah, no, I get that. At first glance, it absolutely reads as a redundancy. But Neymotin breaks this trio down in a way that shifts the entire perspective.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He points out that this isn't just some random list of synonymous bad guys. It represents a very specific, deliberate spectrum of danger based on proximity.
Proximity, meaning like how close the threat is to you physically.
Physically, yeah, but more importantly, psychologically.
Yeah.
So let's look at the three elements. The evil inclination is a danger that originates entirely within you.
Okay, so it's an internal thing.
Right. It's your own internal drive, your own temptation, your own capacity to make a destructive choice.
Got it.
Then you move one step outward to the bad companion. This is someone who is right beside you. Crucially, this is the threat you have actively invited into your space.
Ah, because you chose to associate with this person.
Exactly. And finally, you have the bad person, which represents a threat confronting you from the outside. Someone you didn't choose, someone who just happens to cross your path and brings harm.
So the text is mapping out a radius of vulnerability. Internal, adjacent, and external. Like within me, beside me, outside me.
Yeah, and the author is highlighting a profound realization here. By placing these three things in the same breath, the text intentionally blurs the boundary between inner and outer influence.
Oh.
We usually prefer to think of danger as a purely external force. It's a bad guy out there in the world trying to ruin our day. But the text argues that the boundary between what is inside you and what is outside you is incredibly porous.
It makes me think of, like an immune system.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, like the bad person on the street is the virus circulating in the room. But the evil inclination is your own immune system, whether it's strong enough to fight the virus off or whether your own internal weaknesses make you susceptible. And the bad companion is choosing to go hang out in a quarantine ward. Your internal state affects who you choose as a companion, and that companion affects the situations you put yourself in, which exposes you to the random bad person.
It's an entire ecosystem of vulnerability.
Wow. Yeah, it really is.
And that ecosystem is the foundation we need to understand the mystery of the repetition. If both prayers acknowledge this exact same radius of danger, the difference between them has to be in how they instruct the individual to respond.
Okay, so let's pull up the text of the first prayer and look at that response. It begins with, let's see, may it be your will that you accustom me to your Torah and attach me to your commandments.
Notice the verbs there.
Yeah, the verbs it uses throughout are highly specific. It asks to accustom me, attach me, subdue my inclination, distance me from bad people, and connect me with a good inclination.
Exactly. Notice the proactive, constructive nature of those verbs. They aren't passive at all. They are demanding a reshaping of the individual's character.
It's like going to the gym for your character. But, I mean, how does merely reciting a request to accustom oneself actually build character?
What do you mean?
Well, if I just stand in my kitchen and say, accustom me to good choices, I haven't actually made a good choice yet. I'm just talking.
Ah, I see. Well, Neymotin focuses heavily on that word accustom. In the context of ancient liturgy, verbalizing this isn't just making a wish, it's a form of cognitive conditioning.
Conditioning, like training yourself.
Right. Think about what it means to accustom yourself to a physical task, like learning an instrument. You don't just ask to understand the sheet music. You are asking for the physical mechanics to become second nature.
Oh, I get it. So by speaking these specific verbs every single morning, the individual is setting a psychological baseline.
Exactly. It's a verbal contract to make the right choices a matter of muscle memory.
So you are priming your brain for self-control. When the prayer says, subdue my inclination, that is an explicit demand for internal discipline.
Yes, it's an acknowledgement that I have terrible impulses, and my job today is to wrestle them to the ground before they dictate my actions.
So the entire focus here is preparation. It's the individual taking absolute responsibility for the direction of their life, their habits, and, well, the boundaries they draw.
Which brings us to the core tension of Neymotin's essay.
Okay.
If you do all of that, if you prime your brain, set your boundaries, subdue your bad impulses, and take full responsibility for your actions, why do you immediately need a second prayer?
Right. If I've put on my armor and done my mental conditioning, I should be ready to walk out the door.
But you aren't.
The text demands I stay and recite a second, distinctly different passage. And the central verb shifts entirely here. The second passage begins, may it be your will that you save me today and every day.
Save me, not accustom me, not attach me, not help me build a good habit. Save me.
It goes from a training montage to a rescue mission in a split second.
It really does. And look at the inventory of dangers, the second prayer lists. It expands massively beyond the initial trio of internal and external threats.
Yeah, it asks for protection from brazen people, harmful occurrences, a bad neighbor, destructive spiritual forces, harsh judgment, and hostile opponents.
The addition of the bad neighbor is what grounds this whole philosophy for
Oh,
me.
totally. We were just talking about how the first prayer is about discipline and making good choices, like choosing not to associate with a bad companion.
Right, because you can control who your friends are.
You can't always choose your neighbor, right? You sign a lease, you buy a house, you move into a dorm, and you are suddenly sharing a wall with whatever chaos happens to live next door.
Exactly. You have zero control over the bad neighbor.
Uh.
Just like you have zero control over the harmful occurrences or the harsh judgments of others.
So true.
The essay highlights this contrast to reveal the function of the second prayer. If the first prayer is about discipline and intention, the second prayer is about humility.
It forces you to look at the limits of your own discipline. I mean, you can be the most emotionally intelligent, self-controlled, perfectly habituated person on earth. You can have your inbox at 0 and your meals prepped.
But when a drunk driver runs a red light, or your company downsizes, or your neighbor decides to take up the drums at 2 a.m.,
your internal discipline cannot stop that external reality from crashing into you.
the author illustrates this limitation by looking at how both prayers handle the evil inclination.
Oh, how so?
Well, in the first prayer, the individual asks for the strength to subdue it. That is an assertion of control. You're saying, I will fight this. But in the second prayer, the individual asks to be saved from it.
Oh, wow. Which is basically an admission of failure, or at least the potential for failure.
Right.
It's acknowledging that sometimes, despite my best intentions and my strongest habits, my self-control is going to break. I'm going to lose the fight with my own bad habits, and when I do, I will need a safety net.
The humility required to admit that you will sometimes lose the fight against yourself is profound. But Neymotin points out hidden linguistic clues in the text that prove this dual approach is intentional.
Wait, really?
Yeah, this tension between absolute responsibility and absolute vulnerability is baked right into the grammar.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Let's look at the specific phrasing in the second prayer regarding brazen people. The text asks to be saved from two distinct things. Azei panim, which translates to brazen or arrogant people.
And azut panim, which translates to brazenness or arrogance itself.
Exactly.
Wait, why would the author separate the person from the abstract quality? The prayer asks to be saved from an arrogant person and also from the conceptual idea of arrogance.
It marks a quiet but massive shift in how we understand external threats. It moves from the external person standing in front of you causing problems to an internal human characteristic.
Are you saying the text implies the arrogance is coming from inside the house?
Pretty much.
Like, if the second prayer is about uncontrollable chaos in the world, asking to be saved from brazenness implies that our own internal arrogance is part of that uncontrollable chaos.
Our own weaknesses draw us into the orbit of toxic situations.
Oh, man. It's like doom scrolling or road rage.
Right, exactly.
Someone cuts you off in traffic. That is an uncontrollable external event, a bad person doing a bad thing. But your own azut panim, your own arrogance, your need to be right, your impulse to speed up and honk your horn at them is what escalates it into a dangerous confrontation.
You attract the drama because you couldn't check your own brazenness.
Mind-blowing. You literally pull the external chaos toward you.
We constantly try to divide the world neatly into the good, discipline me on the inside, and the chaotic, bad world on the outside. But the text dismantles that division.
It says that your own internal flaws are part of the environmental hazard you have to navigate every day.
And the history behind how these two prayers ended up sitting next to each other in the book is even more surprising, because they weren't originally written as a two-part sequence.
Right. The source notes, they have completely different historical origins.
The first prayer, the one focused on habit and preparation, comes from the Talmud, specifically a section in Tractate Barakat that deals with the physical, mundane acts of waking up.
Actually, before we go further, you mentioned the Talmud. For those of us who might not be super familiar with the structure of these ancient texts, can you give a quick breakdown of what that is?
Sure. Simply put, the Talmud is the central text of Rabbinic Judaism. It's a massive multi-volume compilation of ancient teachings, debates, law, and philosophy that was codified around the year 500 CE.
Okay, got it.
It covers everything from civil law to how to tie your shoes to how to pray. And the first prayer we discussed is part of a standardized sequence in the Talmud designed to be recited as a person physically moves through their morning routine.
Like opening their eyes, getting out of bed, getting dressed.
Exact.
So it was always meant to be this foundational, everyday checklist for building good habits. It's the baseline standard for everyone.
But the second prayer, the desperate plea for rescue from harsh judgments, bad neighbors, and worldly chaos, has a totally different origin. It wasn't part of the standard morning routine for the masses at all.
It wasn't.
No, it was originally a personal, private supplication recited by one specific historical figure, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi.
And Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi was not just a casual participant in ancient history. He was the chief redactor of the Mishnah, which is the foundational layer of the Talmud itself.
Right.
We are talking about one of the most towering, influential scholars and leaders of the 2nd century.
A man whose entire existence was dedicated to moral perfection, intellectual rigor, and communal leadership. Yet this second prayer was his own personal addition.
Wow.
After he finished the standard, formalized prayers about building good habits, he felt compelled to add this private plea for rescue. Centuries later, the compilers of the prayer book took both traditions, the standard habit-building prayer and Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's private plea, and placed them side by side.
And the essay points out there is actual grammatical proof of this collision of texts left in the final version, a tiny linguistic scar that shows where they were stitched together.
Yeah, the first prayer begins with the phrase Yehi Ratzon, which means, and may it be your will. The inclusion of the word and is a connective tissue.
It links that prayer directly to the blessing that came immediately before it in the sequence, the blessing thanking God for the ability to wake up.
It's a natural continuation of thought.
But the second prayer drops the connective tissue.
It just says, Yehi Ratzon, may it be your will.
Hold on. We are looking at a one-letter difference in ancient Hebrew grammar here. Are we absolutely sure we aren't just overanalyzing a clerical typo?
That's a fair point.
How do we know this missing "and" represents an intentional theological shift and not just a scribe whose hand slipped?
That is the exact right question to ask when dealing with ancient manuscripts. But the historical timeline we just discussed confirms it isn't a typo, because the second prayer was imported from a completely different context, a private, standalone meditation by Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. It never had the "and" to begin with. It was never meant to be a continuation.
Oh, I see.
The editors of the prayer book deliberately preserved that grammatical independence. They didn't smooth it over to make it flow better. They left the jarring start intact so that the reader feels the sudden shift.
So one prayer grows naturally out of the process of waking up and preparing. The other is a sudden, standalone cry for protection against a world you cannot prepare for.
They refuse to blend them because the psychological approaches are inherently opposed, yet both are absolutely necessary.
Hmm.
Neymotin argues that when you read these two texts together, in their preserved tension, they form a complete morning position.
They form that complete position by barricading us from the two most common psychological traps humans fall into.
Exactly.
The first trap being perpetual victimhood. We all have that tendency to externalize our failures. If I am late, it's traffic. If I lose my temper, it's because my coworker was being unreasonable. The first prayer completely blocks that excuse. It demands that you take agency. You must focus on your own character. You are commanded to proactively build good habits and accustom yourself to better behavior, regardless of what the world is doing.
You cannot blame the rain if you simply refuse to check the forecast and bring an umbrella. The first prayer enforces extreme accountability.
But the second trap is the exact opposite. It's the trap of arrogance, the delusion that our willpower is absolute.
It's the hubris of the modern productivity movement. The idea that if we just optimize our sleep cycles, dial in our macros, and meditate for exactly 20 minutes, we become invulnerable to the tragedies of life.
Yeah.
The second prayer shatters that illusion. It forces the individual to acknowledge that there are hostile opponents, destructive forces, and bad neighbors in this world that care nothing for your perfectly optimized routine.
You cannot life hack your way out of human vulnerability.
No, you really can't.
You need the intention of the first prayer to build your character, but you desperately need the realism of the second prayer to keep you grounded. Prepare me because I am responsible for my actions, and protect me because I am not in control of the universe.
It's a beautifully sobering way to start a day. It leaves no room for laziness, but it also leaves no room for ego.
Wow.
As we wrap up our analysis of Neymotin's essay, I want to pose a question directly to you listening right now. Think about the way you prepare for your own day, whatever that looks like.
It's an important thing to reflect on.
When you are standing in your kitchen in the morning, are you only focusing on your own habits, your to-do lists, your mindset? Or are you actively leaving space for the uncontrollable? Are you mentally preparing yourself to handle the moment your discipline inevitably collides with a chaotic world?
And if you find yourself leaning too heavily into the illusion of control, I would leave you with this final thought to carry with you based on the history we uncovered today. Remember who wrote that second prayer?
Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi wasn't just a casual observer of life. He was a monumental scholar, a leader of immense discipline, a man whose entire legacy was built on intellectual and moral rigor.
Right.
If a figure of that magnitude, someone who had achieved the pinnacle of human preparation, felt that his own discipline was fundamentally insufficient to face the day,
That's huge.
if he felt the need to step away from the standard liturgy and issue a private, independent cry for rescue from a chaotic world, what does that tell us about our own vulnerability? No matter how optimized, righteous, or perfectly prepared we believe we are, the world is still waiting for us outside the door.
You can meticulously pack your bag, you can memorize your schedule, you can build the strongest habits imaginable, but eventually you have to step out into the rain. And accepting that you cannot control the weather might be the most crucial preparation you do all day. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.